Welcome to the Story Voice, where every story is told like it happened to me. If you love real, emotional, and unforgettable stories from around the world, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment. These aren't just stories, they're experiences, they're lessons, so sit back, relax, and let this one take you somewhere real. My name is Emily Clark. I'm 28, live in Portland, Oregon, and I've always believed in love because I was raised by parents who made it look easy, or so I thought. Growing up, my mom and dad were the gold standard. Dad would leave love notes in mom's lunch bag, and mom always remembered dad's favorite dessert after a bad day. Our house was filled with music, laughter, and little inside jokes that made me think, if this was what marriage looked like, then I couldn't wait for mine. So when their 30th wedding anniversary came up, I knew I had to do something big, not just because I loved them, but because they deserved to be celebrated. It started with a Pinterest board, a secret folder on my laptop labeled Operation Clark 30, and a group text with my younger brother Josh, who replied to every idea with cool, sure, or sounds expensive. Still, I pressed on. The idea was simple: a surprise vow renewal ceremony, a dreamy garden setup with fairy lights, a live quartet, all our extended family flying in. I'd found mom's original wedding dress in the attic, yellowed with time, but still magical. I had it professionally restored. For Dad, I found a vintage navy tuxedo he once mentioned loving in an old photograph. I even had replicas made of their wedding rings, which had long been replaced after a theft incident years ago. It was going to be perfect. 3 months of planning, dozens of phone calls, thousands of dollars from my savings account, money I'd intended to use for a deposit on a new apartment. But I didn't care. This was for the two people who taught me what love looked like. Josh, finally seeing how serious I was, helped out with the guest list. Aunt Margaret from Chicago, Cousin Ashley from New York, my godmother Helen from San Diego. Everyone was in. I booked the venue, a charming white barn with a wildflower field out back, the kind of place that made you believe in second chances, new beginnings, and everlasting love. My best friend Zoe, who's a wedding planner, offered to coordinate on the day. My boyfriend Andrew agreed to fly in early from Seattle to help with logistics. All we had to do was keep the secret. I invited Mom and Dad to what I told them was an early birthday dinner for me, June 3rd, a Friday night, casual. I said I just wanted to do something small and intimate before my actual birthday, since I'd be traveling for work the next week. They didn't suspect a thing. When the day came, everything looked like a scene out of a romantic drama. The barn was glowing in soft light. The tables were set with cream linens, vintage teacups, and hand-picked wildflowers in mason jars. The guests were hidden inside, waiting for the moment. I stood at the entrance with Zoe, holding the vintage rings in a small velvet box. My hands were trembling, but not with nerves, with joy. Mom and Dad's Uber pulled up right on time. When they stepped out, I saw it, the slight confusion, the curiosity. "Emily," Mom said, frowning slightly. "Just follow me," I whispered, grinning. They walked with me toward the barn, and the moment the doors opened, everyone inside stood and shouted, "Happy anniversary!" Gasps, claps, tears. Mom raised both hands to her mouth. Dad blinked rapidly, his arm frozen midair. It was the kind of scene you'd replay over and over in your head, convinced that for one moment you created something unforgettable. I gave a short speech about love, about lessons, about how I wanted to celebrate their 30 years of partnership, sacrifice, and strength. I ended with, "You two made me believe in forever. This is my gift to you, because your love story deserves a second chapter." People clapped, some cried, and then something strange happened. My mother didn't move. She looked at my dad, and my dad looked at her. Then he took a deep breath and said something I will never forget. "This isn't necessary." The barn went silent, like someone had hit the mute button. Mom's hand dropped from her mouth. She walked toward me and took the microphone. "Emily," she said softly, "we appreciate this, really, it's beautiful, but there's something we should have told you a long time ago." I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "We've been planning to separate," she said, her voice catching. "We just didn't want to ruin your image of us or disrupt your life." I didn't move. I couldn't. My knees felt weak, but I was locked in place by 1,000 invisible hands. "We've stayed together because of you and Josh," Dad said. "Because we didn't want you growing up with divorced parents, but we haven't been in love for a long time." Someone in the back of the barn let out a quiet gasp. I think it was Aunt Margaret. "I'm so sorry," Mom said. "But we can't go through with this, not today, not ever." I dropped the box of rings. They landed on the wooden floor with a soft thud. All the work, all the dreams, all the illusions, shattered in a single breath. I don't remember much of what happened next, just voices, hushed ones, apologetic ones, and then arms around me. Josh guiding me to a bench, Andrew whispering, "I'm here." Zoe covering for me, ushering people to food, drinks, damage control. Mom and Dad left early, together but quiet. I watched them walk toward the parking lot, two people who had once stood in front of God and promised forever. What hurt the most wasn't the shock. It was the fact that they didn't think their anniversary was worth celebrating, and I was the last one to know. It's been 3 weeks since that night at the barn. 3 weeks since I stood in front of a crowd and watched the illusion of my parents' love unravel like the seams of an old sweater. I haven't spoken to either of them since, not out of spite. I just don't know what to say. What do you say to the people who taught you that love was something solid, something that bent but never broke, only to find out it had been crumbling under the weight of silence for years? I stayed in bed the day after the anniversary, and the day after that. Andrew stayed with me the whole weekend, canceling his meetings, cooking me terrible pancakes, and letting me cry until I couldn't anymore. Josh flew back to LA 2 days later. He called a few times, but neither of us had the emotional range to talk. All we said was, "Yeah, same," or "I don't know." I finally went back to work on Monday. I'm a marketing strategist at a boutique firm in downtown Portland. My coworkers were kind, too kind. They'd all seen the pictures I'd posted before the reveal, the floral arrangements, the restored dress, the fairy lights. One of them even said, "That was the most beautiful event I've ever seen on Instagram." They didn't ask why I deleted everything later that night. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't planned anything. Would my parents have told me eventually? Or would they have just split up in secret and sent me a text? I was spiraling, and I didn't know how to stop. Until last Friday. I was at home in my pajamas, sipping stale wine and watching reruns of The Office when I heard a knock. It was Mom. No warning, no text. Just her, standing on my porch in a soft pink cardigan, holding a box of lemon bars from my favorite bakery. "Can I come in?" she asked gently. I nodded, moving aside. She walked in like a stranger, not in the physical sense, but emotionally. Her eyes scanned the living room, landing briefly on the coffee table littered with tissues and empty tea mugs. "I wasn't sure you'd open the door," she said. I shrugged. Neither was I. We sat across from each other. The silence was thick. I looked at her and saw the woman who raised me, the woman whose perfume used to lull me to sleep when I was sick, and yet now she felt like a character I couldn't read anymore. "I owe you an explanation," she said. "You owe me a lot more than that," I replied, my voice sharper than I meant. She nodded, swallowing. "You're right." She took a breath and started to speak. About how it began, about how things changed slowly after my high school graduation. My dad got quieter. She got more independent. They started leading parallel lives. "We weren't fighting," she said. "That's what made it easy to hide. We were just existing side by side, like roommates." "Why didn't you just tell us?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why pretend for this long?" Because we didn't want to ruin you, she said. You were already dealing with so much, college, jobs, breakups, and you always talked about our marriage like it was your foundation. We didn't want to take that away from you. I stared at her, tears forming. You took it away anyway, just later and in front of everyone. I know, she whispered, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. There was a pause. Does Dad know you're here? I asked. She nodded. He wanted to come, but I told him I needed to do this alone. I almost asked her to leave. Almost. But instead I leaned back and said, "Okay, keep talking." So she did. She told me they tried therapy, twice. The first time they quit after 4 sessions. The second time they made it to 10, but it didn't help. They weren't angry at each other. They weren't in love with anyone else. They just didn't see each other anymore. Not the way they used to. We became comfortable being disappointed, she said. We stopped asking for more because it felt selfish. I hated how much I understood that. We talked for 2 hours. She cried. I cried. And then she hugged me. A real hug. The kind that tells you, I know I messed up, but I still love you. Before she left, she said, Emily, your father and I never wanted you to feel like love wasn't real. It is. We just didn't know how to fight for ours anymore. After she left, I sat in the living room in silence. My head was spinning, but in a strange way I felt lighter. The next day, Dad called. He didn't show up unannounced, which felt more like him. We met for lunch at a quiet cafe near the waterfront. He looked older, not tired, just worn. He talked less than Mom. That's always been their dynamic. But he said enough. He told me he'd fallen out of love long ago, but never stopped caring. He said he'd stayed because of guilt, fear, and the comfort of familiarity. But when you surprised us, he said, I realized that we'd let you believe in a version of us that no longer existed, and I felt ashamed. I didn't say much. I just listened. Before we left, he pulled something from his coat pocket, a small envelope. I wrote you a letter, he said, last week, after that night. He handed it to me and left. I didn't open it until later that night. Inside was a short handwritten note. Emily, you believed in us more than we did. That's not your failure, that's our shame. Thank you for loving the idea of us so much that you tried to breathe life into it. That night was a heartbreak, yes, but also a gift. You gave us the chance to tell the truth. I hope one day you'll understand that love isn't about longevity, it's about honesty. We love you. Dad. I cried myself to sleep that night, but for the first time, they were tears of release, not confusion. It's been 6 months now. My parents are officially separated, not divorced yet, but living in different homes. Mom's renting a small cottage in Forest Park. Dad moved into a condo by the marina. They still talk, still meet for dinner once in a while, and sometimes, weirdly, they laugh more now than they did before. I've gone through all the stages, anger, grief, sadness, acceptance, but I'm okay. I really am. Josh finally visited again. We sat by the lake, skipping stones, and he said something that stuck with me. You know what's funny? He said, all these years I thought they were perfect, but maybe they were just committed to looking perfect. I nodded. It's easy to perform love, harder to live it. We both laughed a little, then cried a little, because that's how healing works. Slow, uneven, but steady. Andrew and I are still together. And strangely, this whole experience brought us closer. I told him I was afraid of ending up like my parents, falling into silence, losing the spark. He said, then we don't wait for the spark, we make the fire every day. I'm not sure what the future holds, for me, for them, but I do know this. Love isn't a straight line. It's a messy, winding road with pit stops, breakdowns, and surprises. Sometimes it lasts 30 years and ends with a whisper. Sometimes it's built anew from the ashes. And sometimes the love we believed in was real, just not forever. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth celebrating. Thank you for listening to The Story Voice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you've got a story you think the world needs to hear, drop it in the comments. I might just tell it next. Until then, keep listening and keep feeling.